can't see him, we can't smell him, we can't touch him, therefore he doesn't exist. That is reasonable, that is logical. As for your belief in this unseen God, this is illogical. Well, we say, who were those who recorded the rules of logic? Who were the first people in history that we know about who wrote down the rules of logic? If A equals B and B equals C, then A must equal C. Who wrote those rules down? The Greeks. And the most famous philosophers amongst the Greeks, Plato and Aristotle, they both believed in God. Both Plato and Aristotle argued logically for the existence of God. So we say, belief in God is in fact logical and reasonable, and it is the disbelief in God which is illogical and unreasonable. It's the other way around. It's the disbelievers in God whose disbelief is based on blind faith. Belief in God is logical, reasonable, natural. Disbelief in God is unnatural. That is why the vast majority of human beings in the world throughout history have believed in God. Those who denied God's existence are a minute number. That's why in the Quran, when the Quran addresses belief in God, it doesn't begin from those who don't believe in God's existence. There are a few verses which address them, but the vast majority of verses address those who already believe in God. But they have a confused idea about who God really is. So, if we look at the argument of those philosophers, the Greek philosophers, first among them Plato. Plato's argument for God's existence is the same basic argument we find throughout the Quran. That argument is primarily that design indicates a designer. Design indicates a designer. What does that mean? It means that if we go walking on the beach and we see a footprint in the sand, we don't stop to think and to wonder how amazing it is that the tide came ashore, sunk into the sand, and made the impression of a footprint. That could happen. But do we think that? No. When we see that footprint, what automatically comes to our mind is, somebody stepped here. That's number one. Automatically. That's common sense. It is illogical and unreasonable to assume that that footprint was a product of chance. Though we can say it is not totally impossible, but that is not what comes to our minds. Our reasoning powers tells us otherwise. However, those who deny God's existence, this is their argument. It's possible. It's by accident. Our very existence here is a product of a huge accident. A huge accident which began with the Big Bang. The Big Bang. The Big Bang, which was an explosion of matter compressed in a very small point. Of course, those who talk about this don't explain where the matter came from in the first place, but they start from this point of matter exploding. And this huge explosion produced you and I, complex human beings, from a massive explosion. However, all of our common sense tells us that explosions produce destruction, not construction. Explosions are not constructive. They don't produce results that are meaningful. They are chaotic. They create chaos, not order. So, if we are to believe, as they claim, that this huge Big Bang created us, think for a moment. If somebody were to take an atomic bomb and drop it in a junkyard, the junkyard where you have bits and pieces of old cars, you can buy spare parts, the junkyard. You drop an atomic bomb in the junkyard and it explodes like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Massive explosion. And when the cloud settles, we see in front of us a Rolls Royce. Engine purring. Door open, you just have to step in and drive away. What do you think are the chances of that happening? We say 0. Those who think logically and reasonably, they say 0. But for the illogical atheists, they say, no, it's possible. If you drop enough atomic bombs in enough junkyards, eventually, one time, we'll get a Rolls Royce coming out of there. It's possible. So we say, what kind of logic is that? What kind of reason is that? A person with any degree of common sense will tell you the billionth time that you drop that bomb is no bit different from the first time you dropped the bomb. The chances of it happening are 0. So the atheist turns to the mathematician. And he asks the mathematician, what are the possibilities of this happening? Can you give me a formula for that? So the mathematician tells him, well, its chances of this happening is 1 to the minus billion zeros with a 1 at the end of it. He says, there is that one chance. The mathematician said, 1 billion zeros with a 1 at the end of it, there is the chance. We say to him, please, this is mathematics. Does mathematics define 100% the real world? So yes, mathematics is supreme. It tells us the realities. We say no, it doesn't. Mathematics is an approximation that we have placed as human beings on this world. And we calculate, and it works to a great degree, so we depend on it. However, it is not 100%. Because, according to mathematics, think about this. According to mathematics, if I were to walk out of here, through that door over there, 100 meters away, I will never be able to reach the door. According to mathematics, I will never be able to reach the door. Why? Because 100 meters, when I walk towards the door, I must walk through the 50-meter midway, right? After I walk through the 50-meter midway, then I must walk through the 25-meter midway between the door and the 50 meters, right? And after I go through the 25-meter midway, I must go through the 12.5-meter midway. And after the 12.5-meter midway, I must go through the 6-point, and then the 3-point, and then, and you can keep dividing on your computer and never reach zero. Zero is the door. That's mathematics. According to mathematics, you will never reach zero. You can keep dividing infinitely. So what does that mean? We go to doors all the time. We go through them all the time. That's the real world. But according to mathematics, we never go through the door. So 1 to the minus billion zeros with a 1, forget it. That means zero. No chance. It's not going to ever happen. These atheists usually give another example. They say, okay, if you put 100 monkeys in a cage and you give them 100 Arabic typewriters and let them, of course with paper, you have to put paper in the typewriters, right? Let them beat away at the keys with their elbows, their heads, their feet, knees, jumping up and down, everything. Eventually, one of them will type out the whole Quran for you. The whole Quran, from Fatiha to Nas. What do you think about that possibility? Zero. No, the atheist said, no, it's possible. If you give them enough time, eventually one of them will do it. We say, illogical, unreasonable, doesn't really make sense. So belief in God, as Plato argued, is necessary for us to understand the design that we see in the world around us. In his time, before the time of Christ, he saw just gross elements of design. Since then, science has gone into the atoms. It's gone into the heavens. It's gone all over the world. And everywhere that science goes, it finds design. Every snowflake which falls has a design, different from every other snowflake. Every grain of sand on the beach has a form different from every other grain of sand. This design, this form, was not a product of accident.